It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
So let's talk about positive, scary stories of things you can do on our Halloween episode. So the first one is, don't be scared to fight for what you want, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yep.
And this one was fun for me. I'm so glad we're doing the positive ones. Hopefully everybody stayed in there with us. I want to give you the story of my first car loan. I graduated college. I was just one of these crazy people. My parents had me so fearful of credit cards. I didn't get a credit card in college.
Right.
You know, even though they were handing out credit cards like candy in college, you know, you get a credit card and give you a bag of potato chips.
Right.
I was so scared of credit cards, I didn't get one in college. So when I get out of college, I get a job before I even graduated, but I needed a new car.
Okay.
I mean, because my car was old. It was falling apart. It was called the Ragalier by all my friends. And this is how I knew my wife loved me. It's because she was dating me while I was driving around this rusty old car. So I went to go get my first car loan for this 1994 used Mazda 626.
Ooh, that sounds like a peach.
Oh, man. It was manual speed, and it had the oscillating fan, and it had a cool feature. I mean, talk about gadget factor. An oscillating fan in your car? That's unheard of. But this thing was awesome. And I remember I needed a $10,000 loan.
Okay.
Went to the bank, and I said, hey, I got a job. Look, here's my offer letter. Paid vacation. Gonna be making $28,000 a year.
Right.
Practically rich. Don't you want to lend me this money? And the bank came back and said, nope, we're not lending you the money.
Really?
And I was like, it's $10,000. I got a job. And they're like, you have no credit history. We're not lending you the money. You need to get your parents to co-sign. Here's what the point of this story is. Don't be scared to fight for what you want. I went to the branch manager,
okay,
and I said, look, I just graduated college, graduated with an accounting degree, I'm going to be a CPA because I'm going to work for a public accounting firm. This is your opportunity to turn me into a customer. This is your one shot because eventually I'm going to be buying houses. Eventually I'm going to be saving more money.
Right.
You want me as a customer. What do you think? He said, let me make some phone calls and see what I can do. I kid you not, within 3 hours, he called me back and he goes, I think you make a great point. We're going to give you that car loan without a cosign. I kid you not, you got to go fight for what you want. I want to give you a compliment, Bo, and I've talked about this on the podcast before. You were my first interview when I was hiring associates.
Right.
This is 10 years ago.
Yep.
And I liked the interview. I thought you did great. But I was a little scared of you because you reminded me too much of me. I was like, I'm going to go train this guy, turn him into a beast in the industry, and then he's going to go start his own company. Why would I want to go bring somebody in like that? And then 2 months goes by. You call me back. You said, why didn't I get the job? And by the end of the phone call, you had convinced me that I had made a mistake by not hiring you, and I gave you the job right there on that phone call.
That's right.
So you were willing to go out there and fight for what you wanted, even if it was uncomfortable.
Yep.
And then it made me think about Barbara Corcoran on the Shark Tank.
Yep.
A lot of people don't realize, I love the Shark Tank. When you watch that and you see that Barbara's on the show, you're like, okay, Barbara's always been on the show. No. What happened was Barbara was offered the show on Shark Tank. She told all of her friends and family 4 days before she was supposed to fly out to LA to start filming. She gets a call saying, thank you, but no thank you. We decided to go a different direction on Shark Tank. You're not going to be the person we bring on anymore. So Barbara, she wrote an email, a very harsh email, and I like this quote that she sent to the execs. It said, I consider your rejection a lucky charm because everything that ever happened in my life came on the heels of failure. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's great that she was willing, and I think there's even more to the story. I think she even flew out there and really, put the hammer to Mark Burnett, who's the executive producer for that show. So I'm just telling you, be willing to fight for what you want, even if it's uncomfortable.
Sure.
So the next one, standing out from the crowd. It pays to go the road less traveled. Let's talk about some examples on this. And I hate to make it all about me and you, but I think that it's important that we can share personal stories too. How I got my first job. Here's what you guys need to know. I was a decent student. I graduated with a good GPA.
Right.
But I was not what I call a front row sitter in public accounting, where, getting my accounting degree from UGA. Because that's a good program.
Yeah,
really good program,
absolutely.
ranks highly every year. And it's considered a program. The reason I chose it is because I knew if I took this, I would graduate with a job because it's such a hard program. Everybody comes out with a job.
Right.
So the thing is, when I was interviewing, I was not a front row sitter. I knew I did not have the grades as good as some of the people who were interviewing when these public accounting firms came. But I went through one of the interviews, and the partner at one of the accounting firms said, "Hey, I see you're from McDonough, Georgia.
Right.
We have a client in McDonough." And he proceeded to tell me it was a local hardware store. I was like, I know the owner of that hardware store. So I filed that away. And when they invited me back with 5 other people for a second interview, I was like, I'm going to go interview their client. I'm going to go talk to their client and find out what makes this firm different, or at least get enough information that I can stand out from everybody else who's coming back for that second interview. They told me 2 to 3 years later, after I got the job, that the reason they hired me is because they were so impressed that I went and actually interviewed one of their clients, and they felt like that was a step above and beyond what anybody else who was interviewing for the job. It made me stand out.
Yep.
And Bo, we replicated this. You had a friend who was trying to find a job in financial planning.
That's right.
And he finally got an interview at a firm, and you mentioned to me he was going to go interview. I was like, I know that. I know those. I know the partners and the owners of that firm, the founders. And I said, have your friend give me a call, and let's talk about, what I know about those guys, because I see them at conferences. He made sure that he worked that into his conversation during that interview. And guess what? It's like magic. It's like pixie dust.
He got the job.
He got the job. So I'm telling you, make sure that you try to stand out, especially when you're trying to go, if you know you're going to do something that you're going to look like everybody else, you've got to figure out what you're going to do that makes you different. Like dress up like Howard Stern, dressed up as Jon Snow, or dressed up like a dragon. I mean, this is the stuff you got to be willing to stand out from the crowd to be different. So
I'd like to just put a disclaimer. Brian did not just suggest to go into a job interview in a costume. I think that's an important thing.
I notice you're starting to sweat too.
I am. So it's 4,000 degrees in here. It is 4,000 degrees.
I see the beads of sweat bubbling up on your head. Misery loves company. I just want you to know, misery loves company. So I'm glad, because when I take this off, I'm going to be dripping wet. So I want to tell people I'm standing out from the crowd, getting back on point. Our last 2 hires, by the way, we didn't go find them.
That's right.
Yes, you've heard us, by the way, you've heard us mention on this show that we're looking for a new associate. I will tell you, I'll fast forward. We just hired somebody, made an offer last week.
Right.
They just let us know yesterday they're taking the job. Podcast listener.
Yep.
They heard me mention that a few months ago. Hey, we're looking to grow the family. They happen to live locally. We interviewed with them. They're now going to be working with us. They stood out from the crowd because they listened to the podcast and reached out to us and took the chance. Same thing, Carter, who you'll meet Carter in a little bit when we have him eating these horrible tasting Bean Boozled jelly beans. Carter listened to the podcast, reached out to us, heard we were transitioning from Atlanta up here, and he said, hey, I want to talk to you guys. He went above and beyond and stood out from the crowd. That's the stuff that makes you successful.
Yep.
And then, Bo, you've already mentioned Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is always trying to be a contrarian. He's trying to be different from the crowd. And the fact that he talks about when it's raining opportunity, don't pick up a thimble. Go pick up a bucket.
Yeah, got it. You nailed it.
I don't know that I nailed the quote. I got the gist of it right though. But it's you definitely want to stand out for the crowd. You want to be different when you're thinking about how you handle your finances and invest as well.
That's right.
So the next one, career decisions.
Man, this one hits close to home because I feel like we see so many folks that really botch this one.
We've had a few, and I've seen this also in my time working in government as well. I was a commissioner and a school board member for a number of years, a dozen years, and I saw it all the time. So let's talk about a few of these. Think long term with an eye towards your vision plan, meaning that you need to go into each career decision thinking about what does the end look like, or where am I trying to be, versus, hey, what's the next 6 months look like? I think a short-term vision is not going to help you get there. And I want to go through a few of these, and then we'll tell some stories. Okay. Next, sometimes you may need to take a step back to take a step forward. I think that the new associate that we've hired, he's going to listen to this podcast, he's going to know, I think he will agree, he's already working the capacity as a financial advisor. He's essentially taking a step sideways so that he gets into the fee-only side of the business and has some opportunities to learn that side.
Right, yep.
That is a smart move that he's taking a sidestep to get forward in the future.
That's right.
And then here's the last one, and this is the one that we probably had the majority of the stories on. Don't make a bad decision for $5,000.
Yep.
It goes back to that first thing about the vision plan of understanding what your opportunities are, where you want to be. Because I got to tell you, there's people. Let me give you the one from the county commission. Okay. It used to break my heart when I'd see police officers leaving the county that I was a commissioner in to go to another county to take a $1,200 to a $3,000 pay raise when they were 2 months from being vested in the pension plan.
Oh,
I mean, that is horrible. You realize it had a 5-year vesting period. These are officers that have been there for 4 years, 10 months.
Yeah.
Then they put in their notice to leave.
Oh.
That breaks your heart.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. We've had people where we've made an offer to them, and we're a smaller, fast-growing company, so it's just like a speedboat versus an ocean liner. We're going to move. We're going to be nimble. We're going to grow. We're going to take opportunity grab those horns and do what we're supposed to. I'm screwing up all kind of things.
Just gonna grab
I'm going to keep going
horns.
with it. We're going to grab those horns, and it breaks my heart when I see people go to a more established company because they offered them $2,000 more.
It's not thinking about the long term.
Why is that a trap? The reason I think that is a trap is that bigger companies sometimes can offer you a bigger incentive or a bigger base salary on the front end. It's kind of a trap because they're trying to get you in, but your progress 5 years, 10 years just is not going to have the opportunity that nimble company. There's a reason that startups offer restricted stock units, stock options. They're giving you opportunities to grow with the company. So make sure you're thinking about those type of things. Taking a risk. Did you have any other career ones before I moved on to the next one?
No, I think you hit that. I think a lot of it is also, if you're thinking about starting a business, changing jobs, or changing into a new industry, I think you really have to think about that taking a step back to take a step forward, because we see all the time someone who's in a job making, X amount, or they're established in their current lifestyle, and are you starting to take parts of it off? Dude, that's not committed to the cause.
I will tell you, you're going to notice the speed of the show is directly correlated to how hot I feel. So keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you by taking off my gloves.
What ends up happening is a lot of folks want to make that career change or want to make that jump or want to make that pivot, but they can't because they're nervous about taking that decrease in lifestyle or taking that bump back. I think if you're going to have that long-term plan and if you want to live like no one else, you have to live like no one else. And if you want to do something different, you have to do something you've never done. So I think that's something important to keep in mind.
And that's a great transition point to the next one I had. The next point I had was taking a risk while you're young. Mm-hmm. I really do believe the risk favors and smiles upon the youth. You got him adjusted?
He keeps, yeah, I got him.
Guys, I know we keep pointing out, Bo has a dragon on his shoulder. That's all you need to know. Go check it out, youtube.com/moneyguysshow. But taking a risk while you're young, I've already mentioned startups. Yep. They might not be able to offer you as much money on the front end, but the opportunity could be tremendous. Yep. We have quite a number of our clients that are out there in California or even in other parts of the country where they work for biotech or startup companies, and they've seen it pay off. I'm talking 7-figure payoff situations while they're young. I mean, we've had clients that have moved. I mean, this is one that I will tell you is an important thing to consider. We had somebody who lived in Alabama. I don't think he'd get mad for us sharing. He's a podcast listener, but moved from Alabama to California to go work for a startup. He did it for a number of years, made really good money through those incentives, and then moved back to Alabama with a big pot of money.
That's exactly right. He took that risk early on, and now he's reaping the rewards of that.
We had a client call just last week with a client that is got bought out by a private equity company. He had the opportunity to reinvest back into the company. Now, normally we recommend you don't do more than 5% of your total investable assets with the company you work with, because you already have so much of your net worth and your human capital tied up with this company. But this is one of those situations where he was so confident in this company that he was working with that he is going to take a little bit more of a chance. A client in their 40s, 50s, I might have told him to put the brakes on, but a younger client, I said, if you really feel this strongly about it, this is your chance to see if it works.
Yep.
And then here's another one that we're going to go into greater detail. Starting a business. I think if you can take that jump younger, make sure you have the 10,000 hours, that you actually have reached expert level in what you want to do for a living, but do that as young as possible. And I think that's a smart move.
Sure.
So the next one we had, it's a hard thing. It's a scary thing, but it's a positive thing, is flipping your mindset from being a saver to a spender. We deal with this all the time.
And I think most of our podcast listeners would agree that that's scary. I'm a saver. I save money. To think about spending, that makes people break out in hives.
I have clients. I mean, it's so interesting. Quite a few of you are listening to this show, where you come and get guidance on buying RVs.
That's right.
Buying Gators, John Deere Gators, or buying a BMW.
Or going on a
you can't buy a BMW. And you're like, wait, you don't owe anybody anything, and you have all this money. If you really feel like you want a BMW, go get you one.
Right.
I mean, there is something. I love helping people be as efficient with their money as possible, to the point that you are really deploying those dollars. But there is something really cool about flipping that script from being a saver to a spender.
That's right.
Because you have lived that life, the road less traveled, and taken those risks, and also done the deferred gratification and been disciplined. There's nothing wrong if you've reached those goals with flipping the switch from saver to spender. And it's fun to help people work through that. The last one to close out before me and you catch on fire, or at least start melting, is starting a business.
Yeah.
I will tell you guys, this is one that I think changed my life. I mean, this is what makes it possible for Bo to dress up like a dragon, me to dress up like Howard Stern dressed up like Jon Snow. It is definitely that I was able to start a company. I had a vision for what I wanted to create. And it's worked out. And I will tell you, it's one of the most fulfilling things in the world to take a risk and then come out on the other side at positive. Now, I want to give you some guidance so you can do this appropriately. When you take a risk, what I love is we're using new software for show notes. All my notes I put in on this topic disappeared. So this is all coming straight off the brain.
Solid.
That's okay. We're rolling with this thing. So here's what I tell you. Measure twice, cut once. And the fact that you better have some cash reserves and things built up is because I think where most people don't fail when they start a company, it's not on talent. It's typically that they didn't think ahead and plan well enough to have liquidity so they can make it through the 3 to 5 years that you're going to be going through a drought. Let's face it. There is going to be a period where people are going to be unsure, you're unproven that your new business is going to work, so they're going to be hands off for a period of time. Make sure you have a business plan as well as a liquidity plan to get you through that slow period, because then it kind of piles on when people realize, oh, wait a minute, they've made it.
They're going to be all right.
They seem to be successful. Hey, I want to be a part of that. And you'll notice that everybody starts piling on, usually after you've reached the level of success. But that's why it's make sure you have that plan that you can make it through that hard drought period in the first few years. I'd also tell you that one of the things that's going to keep your mindset right is that when you are thinking about making the jump of starting a business, by the way, we've done podcasts on vision planning and starting businesses, so go do a search on that once you join the Smart Money Club, is also making sure that you have a plan on the front end of what you're doing it for and the why you're doing it. Because if you can't put together why you want to go out on your own, don't do it because you're just trying to run away from some bad things that are going on in your life, that you don't like your boss, that you don't like getting up early. That's not good enough for why you should go out on your own. You need to be running towards a goal because it is going to be something. It's the why, it's the fulfillment, it's the things that make you think that you're really not working because this is what makes you tick. This is where your passion is. And it really is that crazy adage, that thing that's all hokey and used too much. If you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
So true, though.
And it is definitely truth.